Have you ever watched something that completely rewired your brain chemistry?
A procedural network drama might not be your usual pick, but it's ours.
This is The Buddie System, a 911 deep dive podcast hosted by three friends who have DM'd each other enough character dissertations to earn a PhD in media literacy. I'm Han, coming to you straight from the characters' heads.
I'm Sil, bringing you to the observation deck.
And I'm Rachel, connecting the dots with my red string. With our powers combined,
No stone is left unturned.
and no buddy is left behind.
This episode is sponsored by the Rusty Nail Circa 2020. Welcome to Dispatch. What's on call this week?
This week's episode is Season 1, Episode 3, titled Next of Kin, written by John J. Gray, directed by Barbara Brown, and originally aired on Wednesday, January 17th, 2018. The calls of the week are a children's birthday party goes awry when the bouncy house flies away and crashes into a cliff, with the birthday boy and his father still inside. Athena has to call 911 herself when she comes home to find May unconscious after overdosing on painkillers. Chimney gets into a devastating car accident driving on the highway, which leaves him impaled by a rebar through his head. A semi-truck is left abandoned by the driver, with migrant families locked and trapped inside the freight container.
This is kind of the first time we see some of our own get into some emergency situations. I mean, granted, it's only been
3 episodes.
exactly, but we've seen how a little bit of how they like their routine, how things work. We're a little bit more familiar with that. And now this third episode drops us right into everyone's having emergencies of their own. So we'll get to see how everybody deals with that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see how the 118 really, we get to see them become super close, treat each other like family. That's what I would say.
It's what Bobby would say, too.
Which is ironic, seeing as in the first episode,
Yeah, it didn't take him long.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Bobby.
he was so adamant that this is not a family, it's not a clubhouse, but we see how quickly he was fooling himself.
Unsuccessfully tried to gaslight himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably coming from a bit of like protecting himself. We'll probably touch on that a little later as we get into talking about the main character arcs of the episode. So first we'll talk about Chimney, because he is a major player, and it's great because we haven't really seen too much of him yet. And this really gives us, we've seen like little glimpses, but this gives us a much better understanding of who Chimney is, why he is the way he is a little bit. So for this episode, at the bouncy house call, Chimney is upset with his safe assignment, but lies to his girlfriend Tatiana about his role in the rescue. At dinner, which he pretends to cook but did not actually prepare, Chimney's proposal to Tatiana doesn't go as planned when she asks for a few days to think about her answer. The next day, Chimney drops by the station seeking out advice, but instead is criticized by Bobby that his relationship is based on lies. And in turn, Chimney blows up at Bobby, accusing him of judging everyone else, but refusing to open up about his own personal life. So exasperated, Chimney drives recklessly on the highway and narrowly avoids hitting a concrete barrier, only to be plowed into by a truck. And the impact of the crash causes a length of metal rebar to impale him through the head, which is terrifying.
Hey, rebar.
Right?
Ayo, rebar.
And then, the rebar.
Creating the wonderful nickname that we all know and love. After the wreck, Chimney miraculously recovers in a medically induced coma after being rescued by the 118, and Tatiana can't bring herself to visit him even when she's urged by Bobby. But finally, surrounded by Hen, Buck, and Bobby, Chimney comes out of the coma and gives them a thumbs up, communicating that he'll be okay.
You just said that like Christopher.
You'll be okay, kid.
You'll be okay.
It's gonna be okay.
I miss Christopher, too.
Oh.
Give me the DSS.
God.
So, yeah, that's like a general overview of what Chimney goes through in this episode. So we'll kind of like get a little more into it and some of the details, some of the things that we've noticed.
So, like Chimney at the bouncy house, it's I don't even know how to start this. The 118 arriving at the scene, and Bobby's already barking out orders, right? So, Chimney, you this episode really is like a study like in Chimney and like his relationships and how I feel like Chimney has, and correct me if there's like another word for it, some insecurities, I'm sure.
A few.
Yeah. A few.
Well, that's putting it lightly.
And you can see that when Bobby is already telling Buck and Hen to rappel down the cliff, and Chimney's like, basically that he wants to do it, but no,
he wants the cool job.
Yeah, he wants to do the cool jobs,
the action. He wants to be the action hero.
Yeah,
like, why can't I do it?
Yeah, and then Bobby's just like, you handled the wench.
It's like the wench is fun too.
Yeah, I would think so, right?
Bobby thinks everything is fun.
I would think so too. I mean, I like that Daredevil stuff, but like, I also would like to stay and push a button.
I would much rather be at the wench. Yeah, you guys have fun.
Honestly, the wench is probably like the most important part of that whole operation.
So nobody dies trying to save people.
Exactly. He's the one anchoring them.
Yeah.
This is also interesting coming from last episode where at the end we saw Bobby tell Buck to do the maneuver, which we see referenced a couple times in this episode as well. And Buck was like, I don't want to do it. And Chimney said, I'll do it. And Bobby was like, no. Buck has to do this to get over his yips. Like, so it's kind of interesting to see already how like some continuity is coming through like from episode to episode. And so like after being denied like doing the maneuver and he doesn't get to rappel down the cliff, he has to work the winch. He's not happy about it.
No, he's not. And then when like when they finally finish the rescue, Bobby's saying, nice work with the winch. And Chimney's like, like kind of like, thanks. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, like if I were Chimney and I would, basically like if I was Chimney and I wanted to do a thing and they didn't let me do a thing, I'd probably feel like either that was slightly, like emphasis on slightly, patronizing.
He's perceiving it that way, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think that Chimney, and I'm trying to base this off of what we know in these 3 episodes and not, everything that we know about him.
Wait, that's so hard to do.
I think that we've kind of seen that he not just has insecurities, but he kind of has an inferiority complex.
That's it. Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's not just that, because he has things that he doesn't want to do. We've seen that already, where he's like, no, you can handle, you can handle the dogs, you can handle, where he's like, I'm scared, I'm out, I don't, and he's completely fine with that. But then, the second that it's something that he actually really wants to try, it's like, oh, I'm not good enough to like do this thing.
Exactly. Oh, that's so interesting that he's so like upfront about like his quote unquote like cowardice. I think in the last episode he said, you can call me a coward and that's fine. So
he's fine with it with them. It's and then it's this whole other juxtaposition with how he is with them versus how he is with his girlfriend that we'll talk about in a minute.
Exactly. So after the call at the bounce house, we see Chimney preparing dinner for his girlfriend, whose name is Tatiana. And this is the girlfriend that he met on the romancing the uniform.
Romancing the uniform.
Yes. Which already kind of like sets up what a little bit of like what we as the viewer might expect their relationship to be like. Like if you would kind of assume if like non-uniformed people are on that website, they probably have like a particular interest. People like firefighters, policemen, anything like that. So it kind of like sets up a preconceived notion, I guess, for us as the viewer. Like, I don't want to say like ambulance chasers, but like,
oh no, it's absolutely like fetishizing ambulance chasers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely like it, and she literally says this, like, it gets me so hot, like,
yeah. So
saying things like rappelling down the cliff,
being part of the action.
Yeah, it's definitely like a gets them hot under the collar thing, just like what their occupation is. not anything about who they are as
It's
people.
crazy.
It's just super weird thing to have as a website.
That's her freak. That's her freak.
Yeah.
Which, like, let it fly, but also, like, it kind of makes Chimney a little bit into more of an object or an idea rather than, like, who he is as a person.
And especially one that he's already not measuring up to in his own mind, because he doesn't, like, I don't think that he feels like he's, like, a real firefighter sometimes, because he's not doing all of those crazy things that everyone else is doing. Because, like, even Hen gets to, you know, like, rappel down some cliff sides and do fun stuff. And he's always, like, the one who we're seeing, like, get left behind, who doesn't get to do the more, like, dangerous or more, like, skilled kind of, you know, daredevil stuff. So, yeah, I think this was, like, not a great idea for him to sign up, but, like, he probably did it in, like, a way to try and probably make himself feel better, like, to boost his ego.
But then he's also, like, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, but, like, going into it knowing full well that he would have to lie about work because he doesn't do those, like, crazy. I mean, like, maybe he just thought, like, oh, I'm a firefighter is enough. But, yeah, I don't know. I think he set himself up for disaster with that.
Yeah, I think he really did, because he's, by entering in that kind of, like, website and looking specifically for people who are into that, I think that sheds some light on some of his insecurity, that he doesn't feel like he would be enough outside of the uniform. But he's also, at the same time, like, playing into the whole stereotypes of firefighters. So he's kind of not even giving himself a chance in a way, because he's, like, right off the bat bigging himself up. That's not a word.
No, but I know what you're saying. Bigoting. That's totally a word with Miss Marvel.
I was thinking Miss Marvel. No, but he's like posturing himself to fit into this role that he thinks society deems as more acceptable of what a firefighter is supposed to be doing. And he doesn't feel like he's fitting that, so he's making it seem like he is, and that, like, his fibbing essentially is not the only thing that he's kind of making up, as we see when he's warming up dinner that he did not cook, but is like, what did he do? He had, like, the onions in the oven or something.
It was garlic cloves
to, like, waft the scent through the house.
And then he threw them away, which hurt me.
I know, at least, like, put it on what's already there. Like, come on, you're gonna waste some good garlic. No. The fact that he used the microwave too, I'm like, how did she not hear that?
She's not very observant.
She's either not observant, or she was only kind of seeing what she wanted to see.
I shudder to think what Bobby would have thought if he said that he reheated his food in a microwave.
I know.
I'm like, I went through the trouble to make you this really nice meal. And
it's so sad.
Microwaved it? But yeah, he's... This whole situation just stresses me out, because he's very much just, like, it's all an act, it's all pretend, like, nothing about who he is presenting himself to be, and therefore nothing in that actual relationship is real.
Right.
It's all fabricated. He's, like, putting on this persona, which she also, I think there's, like, dual fault here, because she also doesn't try to, like, get to know him more than just the uniform. Like, she sees him as the uniform, because when she tells him that he's a keeper, she lists, like, you're a keeper, you can cook, you rappel down cliffs and stuff, which are both things that he did not actually do. Yeah. But then she also addresses him only as Chimney. And, like, we know that's his nickname and everything like that, but she does not call him Howie.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of interesting too. She doesn't, like, make even an effort to see beyond the facade that he's putting on. So there's already, like, a lack of communication from both sides. Like, there's no foundation to this relationship, because it's on such not solid ground.
Yeah, and then you have that reveal when he finally proposes, which, wow.
Ooh, does not go well.
It does not go well. So basically he proposes, and Tatiana just says no. And
she's saying no without directly saying no.
She says, let me take some time, which is essentially a no.
Like, you can't come back from that.
Especially after everything she said before that. Like,
the girl has commitment issues.
yeah. Which she had never previously disclosed.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't know about either.
Yep.
She had a previous engagement, also not previously disclosed. So this is just showing you, in a very short scene, like, the depths of how there are no depths to this relationship. There's no communication. They don't know each other.
It's so shallow.
Yeah. But yet he's convinced that, like, she's the perfect woman and she's so out of his league.
And that he loves her.
And that he loves her.
And that he wanted to keep doing the same thing they've been doing for the rest of their lives. Chimney.
I'm like, bro.
No.
That's got to be so exhausting. You can't keep that up. Like, that's not sustainable, like, mentally, emotionally, anything like that. Nor is it fair to either party.
But especially him. It's like, you don't think that you can find someone who will just love you for who you are? Like, you don't want to try?
He obviously doesn't think so to either party.
But especially him. It's like, you don't think that you can find someone who will just love you for who you are? Like, you don't want to try?
He obviously doesn't think so.
Chimney is looking for a forever partner. Meanwhile, this girl is just, I guess, trying to have fun. And like, that's not what Chimney deserves. You know, he deserves someone that he doesn't need to like go through these great lengths to like impress or keep a facade for. You know, he needs someone that he can act like himself.
Exactly.
Want to be his silly, goofy self.
He needs someone to match his silly, goofy self.
Yeah,
exactly.
He needs someone to match his freak, and this girl is not it. She is so not it.
She is a different flavor
freak.
Which is, again, not bad, just like the flavors don't mesh well if we're going with a cooking metaphor. I also thought that's interesting. Phil, you said like they want to keep doing this for the rest of their lives, or he wants them to keep doing this for the rest of their lives. That reminded me of the last episode where we saw Athena and Michael in therapy, and she was all like, I can live without like a sexless marriage, blah, 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 blah. If you want to, I said it. If you want to keep doing, you know, what we're doing, staying in this marriage, like they still have love for each other. And it was kind of like the same thing to me, just like a little bit of like diluting them both, like Athena and Chimney.
Just mirroring, because it's the opposite. There's sex, but no love.
Exactly. They're like deluding themselves into thinking that the status quo is good. And it's not.
It's really not. And she just like, fam, she gives me the ick. She gives me the ick, not just because of like her like only wanting to date him because of a firefighter, but just like the way that she had no regard for his feelings in that proposal reaction either.
Yeah.
How it's like, she so obviously does not care about him, you know, but she didn't want to break up because she doesn't want to lose the benefit she has in this relationship. And so she even says like, you know, I have commitment issues and I left, like I cheated on my fiance a week before our wedding, and you know, but I can't say no because like a relationship can't survive that kind of rejection. And it's like, but you're basically saying that you want to reject him, but you're making all of these excuses.
Yeah.
Because you yourself don't personally not want to be in this relationship, even though you obviously want different things. And that just, nope.
It rubs the wrong way. Like,
yes.
Absolutely. Like,
yeah.
It's like, without getting too much into Tatiana as well, because we don't really know her much as a character, it's like, it's obvious that it's two people who both have very separate self-worth issues and are not addressing it at all with themselves or each other. And it's just like for her to like give all of these excuses of like a relationship can't be sustained after this kind of rejection, but like you're not actively like breaking up. It's just kind of like your words are saying one thing, your actions are doing another thing. It's that like cognitive dissonance. It's just like, well, what are you doing? Like in life.
Yeah.
Trying to get her freak on.
Fair.
But I think like her reaction, her bad reaction to that and how she handled it finally like shakes Chimney enough to like make him see that like this isn't real.
Mhm.
Like this isn't right. Like, but you know, he still wants it to be.
Mm-hmm.
He still wants to
Yeah.
hold on, but you can tell that he's like, this isn't like, she doesn't want to be here, and I don't know her, and I don't, you know, and she doesn't communicate with me, and you can see those wheels already starting to turn, like in that scene, and then the beginning of the next one.
Yeah, which, like, do you think because he saw, like, the veil was lifted from him, I guess, in a way, like, he went to the 118 and was, like, kind of seeking advice, but he went straight to Bobby. So do you think that he was actually, like, looking for something to, like, bolster him, kind of like how Buck and Hen did?
Yeah, I felt like he was looking for some kind of reassurance.
Yeah, like, he was gonna get reassurance from Buck and Hen, like, they were kind of supportive, but he went straight to Bobby and kind of figured, like, Bobby was gonna give it to him straight,
Well,
like
it is Papa Bobby.
I think it's one of those things where it's like some part of him knew he needed that like other smack of reality
Yeah.
from someone who like knew him. I think what he really wanted to feel better was like just to be reassured that like you're attractive and you're a great guy, and like, you know, she would be lucky to have you, and that is not what Bobby gives him, even though it's what he means.
It's what he needs.
But it's the delivery.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just kind of feel like he went there trying to like pick a fight and
A little
knew
bit.
that Bobby would react a certain way, and that like he could freak out and things would be fine. You know
And
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you have a good relationship with someone, like a good friendship, like you know that you can kind of freak out a little bit and then like come back and like things will be fine.
They'll reel you back in.
Your friendship will not be irreparably damaged. Yeah.
But also, like, his anger is not just stemming from Bobby being so blunt with him. Like, I feel like he's using this opportunity where Bobby is just like pulling no punches for Chimney to kind of like funnel some of his aggravation and frustration about not being able to take point during some of the calls. So it fuels into each other, because like he knows this isn't what he wants to hear, but I think deep down he knows that he needs to hear it. So he's trying to like, he ends up like deflecting a bit to Bobby, talking about how just like kind of out of left field at this point in time, like from just the 3 episodes, it kind of comes out that Bobby doesn't talk about his personal life, and Chimney really like, you know, goes into him about that. And it's kind of like an interesting shoe on the other foot, where, you know, he's the one kind of like putting this persona on for Tatiana, but he's also kind of feeling like the person who's being not lied to, but like kind of, you know, like led to see, do not look behind the curtain sort of thing in this relationship too.
I think it's one of those things where like, if you're someone who is like that, who is very open and communicative, and you feel like you have, you know, some sort of decent relationship with someone like this, that you kind of probably take it personally if they don't share personal things, but then somehow they're
so
always
ironic.
So I feel like it was just like a perfect storm for him to like blow up at Bobby, and like Bobby does not seem surprised or really shaken up about even the like kind of horrible things he said that like are horrible that we know, but like he, you know, he doesn't know anything about his family, but like
exactly, like
we do. So it's like
seeing Chimney blow up at Bobby like that, and like all of the things he says about like your wife must like hate being around someone who's always right, and I can't believe your wife and kids have to live with you and stuff like that. And like watching it back after seeing the rest of the season or the rest of the series, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, Chimney, you stepped on it.
And he doesn't realize like that's actually such a like a bullseye arrow.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even know, because obviously Bobby doesn't let him.
I think he has to know it's on some level that there's something there that there's a reason why he doesn't know anything about.
Like he's picking up on it.
So I think it's his lack of information. He knew that from that lack of information, there was something there to poke at. And so that's why he poked at it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Sorry, I was just remembering Buck.
Huh?
I was just remembering Buck's reaction.
Was it the poly?
Yeah, open marriages are a thing.
Yeah, he was like, he was like, I proposed. It didn't go well, and then he like says that like, oh yeah, I found out about this, and this, and like, you know, she has commitment issues, and Buck like very seriously like thinking that he's being helpful is like,
yeah,
did you offer her an open marriage? It's very modern.
It's very modern.
So cute.
It's such a sweet, like
he tried.
He's trying to be sweet, and Hen's like, it's not helping.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Also, we didn't talk about like Hen. She's like very supportive, but she's kind of like that middle between like Buck. It's like a
yeah.
Well, she's Mother Hen.
A spectrum.
She
yeah,
is
exactly.
Mother Hen. Yeah, she's like, well, it's not a no, even though it's like
Yeah, like she's
like,
trying to be like,
it's okay.
you know, it's not as bad as you think, but she is kind of like a pragmatist at heart, but like she delivers it with so much more cushion than Bobby does. So it's kind of really interesting to see like the progression there, you know?
I think it's just because Bobby has been holding his tongue about this for a long time.
Yeah.
And then it's like, he's like, oh my God, he freaking proposed to her. Like, and so like under his breath, he's like, it's probably for the best. And I was like, oh shit, I said that out loud. And I was like, all right, you want to know what I think? Like, here it is. Here's the truth. You're going to be angry because you know it's true, but it's the truth.
Yeah, it's
you know?
like taking this opportunity to really like shake him and like shake some sense into him.
You want the truth? You can't handle it.
You can't handle the truth. Which is why Chimney leaves in such a huff. And it's interesting. Oh, it
Fast
like,
and Furious.
Very Fast and Furious. I mean, this episode is all about family, right?
It is all about family.
You never turn your back on family.
Vin Diesel would be so proud.
Oh my God. Yeah, he's swerving through traffic. He's being that person.
Yeah, he's letting his emotions like really take control of his driving.
It's just really funny because like the character, there's a character in Fast and Furious is named Han, and you know, if you guys watch Tokyo Drift,
I haven't watched any of.
You are the resident.
You are
Fast and Furious
resident
person?
Expert. Yeah, Fast and Furious expert. That is like really funny though.
Well, yeah, and technically, like he does get spoiler alert. He does get in a vehicular accident and technically dies for a couple of films. So,
but wait, just a couple of films and then comes back?
Yeah, he comes back to life.
Wow.
So he's also, I think, from. Is he Korean? I don't know. It's just kind of funny. Similarities are funny.
It is funny.
That is.
I love that.
Sorry. Yes. Correct. Korean.
So Chimney is like kind of living his death-defying stunt man life.
He'd really be in Tokyo Drift.
While he's Tokyo drifting. And he's taking it too literally.
Yeah.
He wanted to. He wanted to be in that movie. I'm sorry. I'll shut up now. Make your point. Make your point.
I don't know what my point was. He's driving recklessly. He's letting his emotions take control of him. And it's, I mean, we all know, like, don't get in the car if you're in like a bad state of mind. He obviously did. Don't know what he's trying to accomplish by like swerving all of that, except for maybe, you know, like actually feeling like he has control over his life at this point, which obviously he does not, which is why he gets into this accident, even when he's practically incapacitated. And obviously it's not the 118 that gets the call. He makes a specific request to have them treat him. Mm-hmm. And he didn't, the other captain on the scene said like, he wouldn't let anyone touch him. So it's like, even though he's angry, he knows
He wants his family.
Yeah.
he knows he can rely on his family. Exactly.
I did not realize how fast and furious this was.
It was kind
Are
of
the parallels
wild.
paralleling?
Yeah.
Oh dear. And also a little bit of a what is it? Final Destination. Like
Oh my god.
for
It so is.
millennial Final Destination fear of like anytime you're behind a truck that has like large lumber or like
Yeah.
these
You're
metal
like,
rods or
absolutely
something.
not. I'm going to pass this immediately.
I am passing it. I am going into the other lane safely.
But apparently you're not safe even in front of it. So good
Exactly.
to know.
Great. Another fear unlocked.
Unlocked.
But I thought it was really sweet that like when the 118 gets to the scene and Bobby's talking to Chimney and they're kind of like assessing the situation. Bobby was saying like usually he would be consulting his smartest EMT, but right now he's got a rebar stuck in his head, which is hilarious in the most morbid way, which we see Bobby do a lot. Just like this really like morbid, terrible sense of humor.
But continues to not be helpful while trying to be helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Just like this whole episode.
But it
With
is like
Chim.
it is like validation for Chim.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, Buck this whole episode is like the littlest brother.
He is.
He really is. What is he? He was like, it's not great.
Oh yeah, like which is an interesting dynamic too, because Chimney tells Bobby like he wants to see what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby is like, no, I don't think you want to see it, and Chimney is like, yes, I want to know. Show me. Like he wants to see beyond the fantasy of whatever he's imagining. He wants that reality. So Bobby shows him, but there is still a little bit of that blind optimism there, I guess, at the end when Chimney's asking Buck, obviously as a joke, and I think it really speaks to Chimney's character about how he's still making jokes.
He's still got jokes.
He's still got jokes. He's still like his like fairly happy-go-lucky kind of guy. And he's asking Buck like, "Hey, is the car okay?" Obviously, it's not, and he knows that. And Buck's just like, "Yeah, you just gotta buff it out.
Buff out most of that."
There is like this balance that can be struck between living on the bright side of life, like kind of having not really so much of a fantasy, but like looking at the silver lining sort of thing, or kind of like a little bit of blind optimism, just a little bit, but also while accepting the reality, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I also thought it was really sweet, like once they secure him to the seat as they're about to move the car, you see him give like a little thumbs up, like when they ask, "Hey, are you set? Are you good to move?" And he gives the thumbs up, which is really sweet. Because like at the end, he gives the thumbs up too. And it's just like, I mean, that's really one of his only ways of like communicating that.
Yeah.
But it's just like a small little gesture.
I love Chim.
He's
So glad we're finally able to talk about Chim.
right.
I do gotta say, when I first watched this, like from the very beginning, not my rewatch, I was like, wow, we're we're already killing off a main character.
Right.
Like, okay, rebar to the head. That's
You don't come back from that.
Dean Winchester could never.
yeah, that's a past trauma. I didn't think he was gonna survive that. Can't believe Chimney beat Dean Winchester.
If we don't get a Jensen Ackles guest star making a joke about him surviving a rebar to the head, what
That
is
is
the
a
point?
missed opportunity. Come
What is the
on.
point?
I want it.
Although 911 technically did it first because this aired in
I know.
2018.
All right.
I know.
Still, I don't care who did it first. It would just be for the jokes. I just
It would
want the
be so
jokes,
great.
man.
Listen, no, it's just funny because it doesn't matter when it aired because okay, you have this regular ass guy, this plain old guy with a rebar through his head, through his
brain.
Yeah.
His brain.
And then Dean Winchester takes it from the back and no, you did not.
That is the best Freudian slip I've ever heard.
Dean Winchester takes it back.
I didn't mean.
Yes, he does. I look at the microphone. Castiel is standing there.
I did not mean it that way, but I didn't know how else to say it. But anyway,
You're not wrong.
He has a rebar, like, somewhere back there. It gets worse, I think.
In his guts.
And he dies. Dean Winchester, who has died so many
literally
times.
has come back from the dead so many times, who has survived so many things, whose son is literally God.
Uh-huh.
His son.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he dies? From a rusty nail?
I mean, he wasn't part of the 118, who are notoriously the most unlucky and luckiest.
And lucky.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my god. I was reading a fic earlier
Oh, God.
where Ravi was like, Buck was like, how's covering on B shift? And he was like, I love B shift. Nothing weird ever happens on B shift. It's just regular calls. There's never earthquakes or
it's just them.
or like weird disasters. It's just like regular fires or car accidents.
What if they are like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse?
So, yeah. They're literally cursed.
I mean, they are.
They kind of are. It's just like
We'll get into that several seasons later. But yeah, Rusty Nail, you will always be famous.
we have some fandom wounds about that.
Yeah. PTSD. That's what I have. But anyway, well, I mean, and I guess, you know what? Chimney does too. I just wish there was like, I don't know, like a reference to Supernatural. Be like, hey, did you see that episode? He died from a fucking rebar.
And you survived.
You didn't. You're bodying Dean Winchester.
Which is impressive.
It is impressive.
So, Chimney
I'm
can't
done
ever
with my...
think that he's less.
Sorry, that's a necessary supernatural tangent.
Yeah, I'm done with my supernatural tangent. I just needed that to be in there.
I mean, you have to bring it up, right? It's inevitable. It's gonna happen.
Also, the parallels are paralleling. I don't... Just the rebar.
Yeah.
You have to talk about it. It's a direct parallel.
It's a 1-to-1 correlation.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, Jensen Ackles, I hope you listen to this.
Jensen Ackles on 911 when?
Uh-huh.
Yes, exactly. Almost
Please.
straight into the camera. Do the thing.
Please. For
Do
us.
the thing. I'm sure they'll let you bring the Impala. And
Oh
wear
my
flannel
God, wait.
And just basically be Dean Winchester. It's just what you like to do.
Like, just have that be on the rider. Like, please.
Dude, and then, like, Buck is, like, looking at that car, like...
Maybe he should turn in his Jeep.
Oh my god, they could be in a car accident when the Impala.
While Chimney is in the hospital, the rest of the 118 go on a call, and this is when we see the migrant truck that's been abandoned, and we see how severely Chimney's situation is truly affecting the rest of our crew. So it's affecting Hen and Buck kind of in similar ways, where as they arrive on the call, Buck is like, is it kind of bad? I was hoping for an emergency because he was climbing the walls. He's so worried about his friend that it just like all of this nervous energy when you're just kind of like sitting and waiting around.
Yeah. Well, it sucks. Like,
It's the hardest part.
Yeah. It's hard because if you're just sitting there waiting and you feel like you can't do anything to help that person. I mean, you just have all of these negative emotions, negative feelings, like so much anxiety. Yeah, it would make sense. The call is like a distraction for him and for Hen too, because Hen, I think she says, "Okay, we're not here to blow blow up some steam or something like that." Meanwhile, she actually
does
is.
exactly.
Yeah, blow off some steam. That's what I meant to say.
She literally tackles the truck driver to the ground when she spots him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is an absolute like overstep of her kind of authority in essence, because she's supposed to be helping people. However, like, and we haven't really gotten to see too much of Hen yet, but like we already know like how pragmatic she can be, how intelligent, because she goes and like, well, she can't do anything until they open up the freight container. She goes around to the driver's side window to like basically investigate, see what she can do. So she like uses a lot of that information to her benefit in that way, which is how she ends up tackling the guy. Anyways, but it's interesting that she doesn't follow her own advice to Buck, which is also a very like sibling kind of thing to do. And it's kind of like she's cool under pressure, like when they were at the scene and she was helping and everything, and you only start to see her kind of like unravel when Chimney's not there. Like she holds it together while she's in his like vicinity and everything like that, which is kind of similar to how she was like supportive enough when Chimney went to ask for advice and everything like that. So it's like she's trying to be supportive, she's trying to hold it together, but she kind of loses it when he's not there, and it illuminates like how worried she is and how like deeply she feels about stuff like that and how deep their bond is specifically. So we see that's kind of how Hen and Buck are dealing with this waiting game. Meanwhile, Bobby is kind of a different situation because he goes, I mean, obviously not during the call, but he confronts Tatiana at Chimney's apartment. And that whole scene is very interesting. I don't know if we wanted to talk about that in our scene dissection.
Let's talk about it in the scene dissection. Okay. But like the TLDR version for here is just that he goes to encourage her to, visit Chim because she hasn't in the hospital yet. They're like taking him out of his medically induced coma, and they don't actually know if he's going to wake up. Right. And he wants her to just go and visit.
Just to be there for Chimney.
Just to be there for him.
Yes.
Like he's not saying like you need to say yes or you need to be there, for him always. He's like, I just want you to be there when, they take him out of this medically induced coma.
Be decent and like be decent and like show some support for someone that, I mean, you may not love like that, but a small amount. Like just be a decent human being.
Yeah, but they're like living together, aren't they?
Actually, I don't know. It kind of seems like it, but
because she's in his apartment.
Yeah,
I thought she was just sleeping over.
I mean, she
I
might
don't know
have
if she would still be sleeping over there if he wasn't there, especially if she was having to deal with all of. Well, we can get into it.
We can get into it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so more TLDR. She says that going over there and visiting him in the hospital is not something she's currently capable of doing. So then we see, and we'll talk about that more in depth a little later, but to kind of close out Chimney's arc, we see at the hospital after he comes out of surgery and he's coming out of the medically induced coma that he's surrounded by his real family, right?
Yep.
Which is the 118. We've seen kind of how they flow as a team, as a group unit, and kind of like their individual, like when you pair them off, like their individual like rapport
relationships.
Yeah. Yes. Like Buck and Hen are very kind of like sibling rivalry sort of thing, like when they're playing the video games, which was so cute. And then they're all surrounding Chimney and they don't leave his side. Before that, when they bring him to the hospital in the first place, the nurse asks if they're family because they can't otherwise go past those doors. And that's kind of like the crux of the whole thing is like, they're not family by blood, but they're the family that they kind of choose. I know, The supernatural references just keep
It will
popping up. I'm
always
not
end
trying
here.
to. Family don't end with blood. It's got a lot of similarities.
So it's also a great callback though for like Buck in the first episode. Because he wanted to be with the baby that he saved in episode 1, but in that case, like, he was not related in any way. He just
Yeah, and he couldn't visit or follow up or anything.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then with Chimney, I mean, Chimney's a friend, but like, still, I guess, what is it, like, protocol that it has to be someone that's blood related.
Yeah.
Has to go up there.
And we do specifically hear Buck like referring to himself as family, like on the phone with Abby. He was like, I'm kind of the younger brother that like he never wanted, or he's the older brother I never wanted. I was like, actually, no, I would have loved having a brother. So, we get to hear straight from his mouth that, that is the kind of bond that he feels like he has with this person.
He could have lied. I said he could have lied and been like, yeah, I am. I'm his adopted brother.
He's not a good liar,
right?
though.
Technically.
His adopted brother.
I know, it's kind of like a dumb question for the nurse to ask. Like, are you family? It's like, do they look related? But it is intentional to emphasize the fact that even though they're not related,
Right.
that is their family, which again is just like from episode 1, like, we know it's a family. Like, come on.
Yeah. Even though Bobby was like, this isn't a family.
Yeah, but that was more to convince himself.
But also, so like, speaking of family, one question that I'm sure like, general audiences would ask is like, where is his family? Right.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And we learn by the end of the episode, because like, I mean, let's be real. I mean, where is his family? This guy was in a car accident, had a rebar stuck in his head. That's
you would think
insane. You would think they would be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Or like
they're
on
not.
their way there. Like your family's on their way.
Yeah.
But no.
Like, drop
Hen has
everything.
Yep.
And
So Hen reveals that she tried to call Chimney's parents, who are actually in South Korea, but they didn't pick up. And then Bobby says, that's okay because his family's, which he's referring to them.
Exactly. And they're kind of like surrounding them, and Bobby is the one that ends up holding his hand, as opposed to Bobby wanted Tatiana to go see Chimney because he hoped that if she was with him, that Chimney would feel that love for her, and it would feel that love for him, and it would give Chimney a reason to fight his way back. It turns out he didn't really need that from Tatiana, because he had all of the reason that he needed to fight back between Bobby and Buck and Hen. There wasn't an end to that sentence, but
no, that was it. That's the end. Like, it's just great that you like already, you kind of get plopped into this dynamic, which already feels kind of like familial, but you definitely have one of the captain in the first episode being like, this isn't a family. And then 2 episodes later, he's
grumpy.
like, he's like, we're his family. So we love to see it. We love to see. I don't even know that it's growth. I was gonna say, I don't even know if it's character growth. I think it's just like character honesty, like actually being honesty and letting himself, openly, actively care, as opposed to like begrudgingly against his will caring. He's just like, well,
I do have to make an argument though, because we know what's going on with Bobby.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's still growth, because I'm sure, without getting too spoilery, for people who did not watch this, there's a callback to the like Bobby's family. Like, what is Bobby's family? Who's Bobby's family? We don't know that yet. And I feel like even from the first episode, where he doesn't. I feel like you don't want to get attached, but he's gonna get attached anyway. Like, we know this. I'm not saying that he doesn't want to get attached, but there is a line that I'm sure everyone is like conscious of that they don't want to cross. But here we are. We went from we're not a family to we're his family.
Yeah, like, we're already at this point. We're already seeing some like little cookie crumbs or breadcrumbs being laid about Bobby and kind of how he views family or like his familial kind of like situation or how like he may keep people at arm's length or kind of like towing the line and trying to find the balance between like uh, I think when I was first watching this I was trying to figure Bobby out and it was more of like, okay, is he just trying to toe the line between, being a professional, he's the authority figure, he's the captain, but also like that familial, like dad, like father kind of role that his crew looks up to and trusts and everything like that. So we're starting to see that get slowly threaded, like, yes, slowly established. And we'll see a lot more of that come up, even in the first season, but obviously it has repercussions throughout the entire series. So it's kind of just like a little peek through
of the dynamic that we're going to be seeing.
So since we've kind of covered a little bit of Chimney's arc, like what he experienced through this episode, shall we move on to our second major player, who is Athena?
Mother,
yes.
Mother.
In a very much like mother role, I don't think we actually see her in her police uniform until the very, very end. So she is Athena, mom, for like the 99% of her screen time on here. So just to cover what she goes through in this episode, Athena experiences a tragedy far too close to home when she discovers that May overdosed on painkillers. Reeling and both feeling responsible for this turn of events, Athena and Michael agree to just be strong for the benefit of their daughter. While at the hospital, Athena is confronted with her family's new reality when she unexpectedly meets Michael's boyfriend. And then once May is awake, she and her parents all have a heart-to-heart until Child Protective Services arrives to assess the situation and kind of summarily dismisses both Athena and Michael. And then later at the very end, Athena heads to May's school in her squad car and looks to kind of be stalking the bullies that May has been dealing with, but she doesn't take any action yet. So it kind of leaves Athena a little bit on a cliffhanger that we'll see pick up in, I think it's the next episode. If not, it's the one after. So when we see, we kind of pick up with Athena where we directly left off in episode 2, which was finding May unconscious, and she makes the call to 911. That's where episode 2 leaves off. But you just like, we're able to sit with a little more the intense emotions and shock that Athena is experiencing and finding May in this situation. And it seems like if we take the camera as like her perspective, her point of view sort of thing, you kind of see a little bit of like the police mentality in her, where she's assessing things like very quickly. Like there's a quick shot to the counter where like the pill bottle is. So she's immediately like so guilt stricken because she recognizes that it's her
hers.
pills. This is a situation that like nobody would ever want to see anyone they know or any family member, but especially a parent witnessing their child like this. She kind of like goes into action, like what she can do by calling 911, and like we see her give Harry some directions, and it's just kind of like a go, 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 while like her entire world is crumbling.
Right, and time is of the essence here, because we don't. Oh, I mean, I think in the call, she said that May is not breathing. Is that right?
Yeah.
So she assumes that May is dead, and we need to basically go, go, go. I need my son to be taken care of. Go to the neighbors. I need Dad. I need Michael to be at the hospital when I get there. She gets on that ambulance and they're kind of asking her if she knows what's going on, and she's so distraught, really, because again, she recognized those pills as hers from past dental work, and it has her name on it, and it's like she's going to take that and blame herself in a way, on top of other things that are going on, because like why did her daughter overdose? What happened? What caused it? Was it me? Was it me in a literal sense and in a figurative sense? Why didn't I catch this?
Yeah, you start to see that like thought spiral start kind of immediately, and like just to have this on top of her, what she views as her failed marriage with Michael, and it's just like things are piling up, and it's too much for anyone to handle, really. Not even to say like happening all kind of simultaneously, but like also Michael, when he shows up at the hospital too, to go on the point that you were just mentioning, he immediately feels at fault for his part to play too with, and he expresses regret at like telling the kids about his sexuality like too soon. They weren't ready, blah blah blah. And it's essentially both Athena and Michael are feeling so guilt-ridden that they were wrapped up in their own personal issues of their marriage, that it distracts, or it became distracting away from their children, because they realize like they don't know what May is going through. They don't know why she did this. They're essentially trying to like detective between each other, but neither of them has the answer.
Yeah, they were definitely looking back into past interactions that they had with her, and they couldn't really figure out like what, they couldn't even find a hint or any inkling of like why this is happening. And so, but either way, at the end, like they are blaming themselves. Athena for probably not paying attention, realizing that her marriage is crumbling, and then Michael with like coming out to his kids. I guess kind of like, what's that phrase?
Insult to injury?
Insult to injury, I guess. There's a man that shows up. And like he's just, well, honestly, like I don't know, he didn't even have lines. I didn't notice that until
I don't think he had lines.
It was so bizarre. Personally, I was like, damn. I mean, I guess like what are you gonna say? But you're just standing there watching parents crumble.
Right, and you're just like, this is Michael's new boyfriend that we're talking about, and it's just kind of like this complete outsider, essentially, because he hasn't been introduced to Athena or the kids, and to have this like be the first impression,
just rolling up in the worst moment of her life.
It really does add insult to injury for everything that like Athena is going to, but it also kind of like with how Chimney was like obscuring the truth kind of thing, living in his own fantasy life, it kind of kicks Athena into like, it's like a reality kick for her as well, to be confronted physically. Like you can say all day long, they're just talking about it, and she can accept it like as a concept, but to be confronted with it physically, like in your face, you can't really live in another kind of fantasy or reality where your husband does not have a boyfriend at the moment, With that, she kind of like excuses herself in a non-Athena-y kind of way. It's just it's like very subdued, which we haven't really seen her as of yet. And then she like there's just this scene of her walking through this hallway, and she looks like so lost. And like despondent, and just like, I think it's because we, up until this point, like, and again, like 911 introduces the characters very, very well. We get a very quick understanding of who they are, even though this is only the third episode. I don't think we've had a moment yet where we've seen Athena not like be spurred into action, like she's always kind of doing something.
She's too like overwhelmed and consumed with thinking about May to like react the way that she would or wants to. she's like, I just don't have the energy to give to how much this is upsetting me. So I'm just going to remove myself from the situation.
Yeah. Just like the all of it.
Instead of being like what I feel like she wanted to do was to be like, literally, why is he here?
Yeah.
Well, she says later in the episode, like she wanted to
she wanted to slap him.
Yeah.
Which was so funny because I was like, is she not just like not going to bring it up? And she's like, I know she wanted to be like, don't fucking talk to me about what's not fair. Mm-hmm. Don't talk to me about what I'm, what I know is right and what what I should be doing. But she did it in such a good way where it was like, I'm doing exactly what I need to do, even though I want to hurt you. I can do that in my mind. And then the rest of me is, holding my family together.
Yeah. She can compartmentalize really well in that way. Because I think she's had a lot of practice doing so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also feel like the scene of her walking in the in the hospital hallways, like I feel like it's just her trying to like not take a break, but try to recenter herself with the reality that just kind of like it's hit after hit. You have May, and then now you actually have to see your husband, I guess, still husband, with the man that he is now with.
It's a lot to just kind of like deal with mentally and emotionally when you're already like at wit's end. Your rope is like fraying, and she can't do anything until May wakes up. And then when Michael and Athena go to see her and see how she is, it really becomes clear like how much they are not aware anymore of like May's inner world, which is why they are so like hard on themselves and feeling like they're at fault. But you kind of also have to remember
she's a teenager.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what teenagers do. They think they're these little adults and they're gonna handle things on their own.
Well, yeah, but I feel like that's also an adult thing to do. Where it's like if something is happening to you that is making you feel demoralized and dehumanized, and it's like your first reaction is not to like go get support,
That has to be a learned behavior.
Yeah, exactly. And teenagers definitely don't have that yet. And their prefrontal cortexes are not anywhere near fully developed.
And she also probably didn't really have that good of an example in this kind of thing, because she's been seeing her parents kind of
bottle
like as
up.
Exactly, as much as they've been trying to like shield May and Harry from what's actually going on between them. Like we know they're not doing a good job.
No, they're not doing them a service.
I also feel like May is literally her mother's daughter.
Yeah.
Because she
very much.
Because Athena, from what we know about Athena after watching all this, she likes to deal with stuff on her own. And even these past couple episodes, she's trying to deal with stuff on her own. So that is her prime example that May has.
Exactly. And you kind of see that too, because like when Athena and Michael, but I think it's coming mostly from Athena, is trying to, bolster May up and be like, you're strong, you're courageous, you're a champion, you're filled with holy fire, and no one messes with you, and you're not alone anymore. When she says later, like, you need to be braver than you've ever been. Like both of those lines to me, I mean, just first of all, like Angela Bassett is such an icon and such a masterclass in acting, and just like the emotion that she's able to convey with those lines is like you feel it in your gut, right?
Yeah. The delivery.
Yes. So good. But it's also the conviction with which she says that, with which Athena says that. It's kind of very much what Athena needs to hear in that moment too.
Yeah.
So it's not just her telling May this, she's telling herself in a way.
It's probably also stuff that she has said to herself before. Like it very much is giving like affirmations. You know what I mean?
You is kind. You is smart.
You
You
is
is
smart.
important.
But it's the thing, the delivery is what makes those lines so good, is because without her specific kind of delivery, and obviously without the relationship and connection that she has with her daughter, not just, with the mother-daughter relationship, but like being so similar, that it comes across as very meaningful and not like a platitude.
Yes. Because it could be just kind of like a brush off. But it's emoted so deeply, and it just really underlines like how this is for Athena. And especially when like you can't, as a parent, when you're kind of sitting there helpless and there's nothing you can really do for your kid. I mean, I'm not a parent. I don't know that firsthand, but I can
Imagine.
I can imagine. I can understand to an extent. Like all you can do, like as a parent, is be there for your kid, and it's really lovely how Athena and Michael just kind of like shelve everything that they've got going on, and they recognize the importance of like May is in need of us right now. We need to be there for her in whatever way she needs, in like unconditionally, right? Because as much as Athena and Michael have their own issues, like individually and together, like they still have familial love for each other, and they love their children so much. And it's kind of interesting too that Athena's parental instincts kind of eclipse everything else. But again, because she's going through so much emotionally, it eclipses her police instincts when they're talking to the CPS, the Child Protective Services worker, is insistent that they need to, Athena and Michael have to leave. They have to like be removed from. Athena is all like, you don't have to do this, even though she knows that's procedure. And the CPS worker is also like, you're a police officer, you know what I'm authorized to do, which I'm assuming is like forceful removal and no contact, which is also got to be like one of the hardest things for a parent, is just to kind of like, let their kid go out into the world in whatever sense, this included. So it's, you see that kind of like dichotomy of who Athena is. Like she is the police officer, but she's very much like a parent first. She's a great police officer. She has like these incredible detective skills, but she knows her priority is to her family. You also see that right immediately afterwards, once Athena and Michael are essentially like ushered or shooed away after their conversation with the social worker. And this is where we have the great line. I think you said this earlier, Han, where Athena is like wants to slap Michael so hard for probably just the everything. But she's in one hand, but then in the other hand, she's holding her family, which includes him. It's all four of them so tightly. I was just going to parallel it to Chimney about how, working the winch is like the strongest link in the chain, right? Athena is the strongest link in the chain of her family. She is the glue that keeps them all together. So I thought that was like a nice kind of link to these two characters as well. I couldn't think of a better word. Sorry.
No, but I was also going to say like the symbolism between the right hand and the left hand.
Ooh.
So like right hand, so she's trying to take charge of the situation. She wants to be strong and preserve her family and persevere. And then when it comes to the left hand, it's kind of like what she wants to do, but it's not a proactive approach. And also when you really think about, again, right and left, people think right being righteous, left being more on like the on the negative So it was just an interesting way to deliver or to write that dialogue, because you can see like kind of like it's also kind of like devil angel on the shoulder type of thing. So it was just
that's
like
so interesting.
that was like a little bit of that symbolism that I kind of enjoyed looking into.
No, I love that. I wouldn't have even thought of that. Like, she's got her hands full,
Oh, absolutely.
right? And then I guess the last thing that we see of Athena in this episode is kind of, it's
Brief.
essentially a bridge into the next episode, or like her upcoming small arc. We see this in 911 pretty often, where they kind of have things paired in like 2 or 3 episode little character arcs. And it's just interesting to see how it like rolls over. The last thing that we see of Athena, it looks like she's about to this is the moment where we see her the first time in the whole episode in her police uniform, and it kind of looks like she's probably going to be doing something that maybe is an overstep or an overcompensation of her authority as a police officer.
You know, you should get a little bit of foreshadowing, because if I go back a little bit to when she was talking to May, she says they done picked the wrong family. So my little note was like, Athena is about to do some shit.
Alexa, play Who's Afraid of Little Old Me by Taylor Swift.
Oh, that would eat.
Oh my god, yeah. But she's also kind of saying, and it ties back into like the thing that she says to Michael. She's also saying like, no one messes with her family, not even her family, you know? So it's not like, I'm not saying Michael is messing with her family, but like whatever is going on between her and Michael, like it is messing up the dynamic. And then we have whatever's going on with May, you know, with her bullies. So she's trailing the girl, Lila. So Athena is going to have something up her sleeve.
Well, we can't talk about that yet because that's in another episode. Which kind of brings us to the last storyline of this episode, which is interesting because it's so Chimney and Athena heavy. But we do connect back to Abby in this episode. And just to kind of go over what she experiences during a birthday celebration for her mother, Pat. I think her mother's name is Pat. Abby's brother, Matt, suggests putting their mom in a memory care facility, and he kind of insinuates that caring for their mother is taking a toll on Abby, and it doesn't have to fall solely on her. While Abby is adamant that their mom remain in her care, and she says this to Matt, Abby does voice some concerns over the phone when she speaks with Buck, and is kind of validated or kind of bolstered when he tells her that the only thing that matters is family. So kind of like the moral of what he learned from this episode. Anytime we see Abby dealing with her mom, it's just like so much empathy, because that's like we saw with Athena, a parent dealing with their child. It's got to be just as hard, but in a completely flipped way for a grown-up child, to have to deal with their parent experiencing, we'll call it an emergency, because that's kind of how we were introduced to the whole thing. You can see like a little bit more of the family dynamic here when we're introduced to more of Abby's family, because we know we have her and her mom, but also Matt, her brother, and I don't know if he's like the older or younger one, but he is there with his family, and we know that
she's absolutely the oldest. The whole responsibility thing, and the fact that he's just like, oh, you're such a martyr and you're always, you know what I mean? You're always doing things without complaining, but like you shouldn't. But he's also not offering to help.
That's exactly it. Oh, that's what.
Yeah.
What a great brother.
Yeah, so it's not like explicitly stated whether, Abby is the older sibling, but, heavily implied based on other tropes that we are very familiar with.
Yeah.
Like the oldest daughter syndrome. But Han, you're exactly right. Like he wants, like he shows his concern for Abby, which is coming from a genuine.
Yeah, but he doesn't seem to be so concerned about their mother. No. Like he's kind of just like written her off in like a, she's not really there. It's just going to get worse. And like you're just making yourself a martyr and like killing yourself to take care of her when you don't have to. And like, it's just you drew the short straw because you're the only one who doesn't have like, a significant other and kids and whatnot. And it's like, but you could still help. You could still help. Like I'm getting the feeling that like they aren't in touch with her very often, and except for like it's her mom's birthday,
Abby,
and that's why
Abby
they're there.
Says that they help or that he helps, but I think it's more in probably like a financial help with like the whole you drew the short straw. Did she really draw the short straw first, or was it not even much of a conversation? And this could go either way too, like of her saying, I'm going to take care of her, like full stop. Or was it just like also a lack of him saying, but I also want to do that, and probably has more resources because he has like family, more people around the house, stuff like that. So it's an interesting, it's probably more of a, like they were at an impasse sort of thing. Like she's stuck in her way, he's stuck in his way, and it's just what it's gonna be.
I don't know. It's coming from like just a little personal tangent where I spent the first 9 years of my life growing up with my bubby who needed in home care. Like we purchased a house like that wasn't completely built yet, so that like we could get an apartment built for her on the first floor. And my dad took care of her. And my mom obviously took care of her, for a decade while she struggled with her health. And, there was no other like direct family that lived there, but like my uncle visited like probably more often than we are currently shown. And he didn't, like, I get the feeling these people live there. Like I'm just drawing, conclusions from what the very little that we get.
Right.
But it very much gives that he doesn't care much about the mother, and like he cares about her well-being, but isn't so much caring about the relationship because he's not thinking
actively
of it as
a
one
part
anymore
of it.
because of her having Alzheimer's. And whereas Abby's attitude was, well, my mother needs care. Of course, I'm like, I don't think she ever hesitated.
Yeah.
And even though it's gotten progressively harder and harder, like even when she's presented with like, oh, here's like a great care option, she barely blinks. Like she barely considers it.
All the reasons she needs, and she says so, is she's my mom. Like that's that kind of unconditional support that Athena and Michael also have for May. It's just like everything falls to the wayside. You take priority.
And you do whatever you can. And it's obvious that like she's able to do more than the rest of her family can.
Yeah.
And so she's okay with doing it. But what she's upset with is that she's being told not to, or that it won't be good enough soon because she's going to need more care. Probably.
Which like is also another like kind of like veil lifted, because we see that Abby has like acknowledged enough to know that she needs the extra help, especially when she's working, which is why she had an in-home caretaker in the first place, and now she has Carla, which is as we saw in the last episode, like so much more help than it was. So like Abby is aware that she has some limitations here, but it's not really until, I mean, I'm kind of assuming that this subject has been brought up before about like the care facilities, and she just kind of like brushes it aside. It seems like maybe this is one of the first times that she actually like takes a minute to consider it, even though we know what her answer is. But because the veil is lifted or the wool is pulled over her eyes, and that she kind of takes stock of reality, and that at some point, because it is a degenerative disease, like she won't have the tools to be able to help her mom the way she wants. Maybe she's kind of like overcompensating a little bit to her brother by saying like it's fine, she it was her choice. Just kind of like she's like very assertive about the fact that like it's okay, she's got it covered, she's got it handled. But kind of like with Hen, like bringing it a little back to how Hen is fine in the moment, but then when Chimney's not there, she kind of like shows what's underneath the surface. The same kind of thing happens when Abby calls Buck, and she's like looking for this like affirmation, like confirmation. What did we call it when Chimney was looking for
Reassurance?
reassurance? Thank you. One of those. She's kind of able to like put that wall down a little bit and it's interesting because she's like metaphorically out on a ledge, because she's kind of like out of her depth a little bit. But you know, it's kind of funny because they do bring this into the text, so they want you to pay attention to it, that she says like, well, I'm not out on a ledge, but I am on a windowsill. So it's like she's emotionally out on this ledge, and she's kind of like verbally acknowledging to someone like third party outsider with absolutely no personal interest in the matter, to take one of my favorite lines from She's the Man. Um, and she kind of gets like Buck's perspective on this. I had to put it in.
Oh my God.
So she kind of gets Buck's perspective. I thought like his advice that he gave her was really interesting, because obviously he's going through something kind of similar, even though like the circumstances are completely different, about it being about family, and you want to be there for your family unconditionally again. But I don't know, something about that just feels like it's maybe not, I don't know if it's like the right advice. It's what Abby wanted to hear, and he gave it to her. But I don't know if that was the advice that she needed to hear, like what Bobby gave to Chimney, you know? So I wanted to know like what you guys thought about that as well.
I mean, I personally, again, this is just personal tangent as well. I don't know if it was my mom, I wouldn't know what to do, and I would rather take care of her as long as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing wrong in still wanting to. Like, I guess,
Right.
I know Abby with, I guess, Alzheimer's. I get that it's a degenerative
Just goes
disease,
downhill.
but yeah, like I would try to do whatever I need to do for as long as I can, and then probably ask for help later.
Like as a last resort sort
Yeah.
of thing. Like once you're
Yeah.
fully out of
Options,
like
yeah.
in deep waters. Mm-hmm.
And what Buck says, what does Buck say? Family is
The only thing that matters is family.
the only thing that matters is family. Yeah, I mean, it kind of aligns with like my values. So, I don't see anything wrong with it. And I guess those are her values too. Like those are her, like, that's her mom. It's her mom.
Yeah.
So
I want to make it clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Oh,
advice.
you just want our opinions.
Yeah.
I think it's good advice for like anyone, as long as you are taking family to mean the people who are actually your family, whether they're related to you or not.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, and for a lot of people, your family does not deserve your unconditional support and effort and love. But I think in this case, you know, Buck knowing her and knowing, how she feels about her mom, I don't think it's bad advice. I also think he prefaces the advice being like, I don't really know, because what does he know about this kind of situation?
And we don't know what his family is.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know anything about his family yet. So I think that's kind of like the only advice you could have given, unless he wanted to get into like being on the logical side of things, which would have been like, oh, well, here are the pros and cons. But it's like she obviously was talking about how she was considering the pros and cons. So I think when you're calling Buck for advice, you want the...
Is it the heart?
Yes.
The heart.
You want
advice?
the heart. You want the emotional
advice from
truth
the heart.
advice.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's good advice here.
Yeah. I think it's the best advice that he could have given, even though it's probably not what she needed to hear. But I think I don't want to say like it's not what she needed to hear, because like,
what did you think? What do you think she should have heard? Like, what would your advice have been?
I would have had the same advice. I just like, no, that's the thing. Like, I would have had the same advice, or it would have gone into like the logical, here, let's make a list of pros and cons. Like, what are you actually capable of doing? But like, they're also like not
but it's
really
a very emotional decision,
Exactly. So like, in an episode where we're hearing a bunch of different advice, and some of it is what they wanted to hear and some of it's what they needed to hear, and having those be different things, I think this can kind of be an instance where like what you wanted to hear and what you needed to hear is the same.
The same thing?
Mm-hmm. I might have just convinced myself of that. I've argued myself into it. I'm great at that.
I think it's really good. Like, I think it's good universal advice. Again, like I said, with the caveat that it's actual family, not just people who are related to you.
Yeah, and like that little point also brings in mind of the family that you choose, because during this shot, when it pans back to Buck when they're on the phone, you see Buck in the foreground, and the background is still the rescue taking. So it's Bobby in the freight container, helping kids out of there, and I just thought that was interesting because the focal of it. So like everything else that blurs, the Bobby comes into focus as he's talking about this, and you would think it would be he's talking about like families, everything, because he just helped one of the families that was in the truck.
Right.
It was the mom, the dad, and the son, and helping him like breathe. And so you would think like the way the focus shifts, like from the kid getting rescued, it focuses to Bobby, and once the kid is handed off to other responders, they're blurred, and Bobby is still the focal point. So that is kind of like visually indicating that he is. I mean, we know this, but it's like it's nice to have it.
It's having intentional.
Yeah, it's nice to have it like underlined.
The
in a
director
visual
of
way.
photography was director of photographying.
Yes. Anyways, I just wanted to like point that out. I explained it really poorly, but just sometimes like little visual cues. Thank you. Sometimes visual cues like that, I think, help just like reinforce what we already know. Kind of like that. Like you're on the right track. Keep going.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for Abby. Like, we do see her, kind of resolve this arc with Carla out loud, from the continuation after her conversation with Buck.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Carla finds, like, a brochure that her brother gave her and is like, am I going to be out of a job? And she's like, oh, no. Like, I thought about it for a second, but, as long as my mom is here, I want her with me.
Yeah. So she really does take Buck's advice to heart.
Yeah.
Because it was advice from the heart.
Yeah, and I think she already was there, but she had been so overwhelmed until Carla just got there, and then she has her brother telling her that like, oh, it's going to get worse, and she's trying to think about what's best for her mom. So I get it, like being like, okay, but actually should I do this? Is this better for her? Because I don't think she's really thinking about herself.
No, I think Abby's like
yeah.
She's not.
so selfless in this because it really is like sacrificial. Like her brother calls her a saint and she kind of just like poo-poos it, but it shouldn't be just like a throwaway thing. Like she is doing something so altruistic because she wants to and not because of necessarily a sense of duty.
Yeah.
So, all right. Shall we discuss Bobby talking to Tatiana, which is a really interesting scene that we get to see play out. I just got like the vibe. We don't see a lot of scenes like this where, you know, one character is going to kind of like essentially plead their case to someone and then have the other character just like totally not write it off, but just like be so not convinced, like not swayed in any form like that. I thought that was interesting.
This is my hot take. I think that Bobby did this because he felt like he should.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he went into it thinking that he would be successful.
I agree.
Me too.
So I think that sets the tone for the whole conversation.
Yep.
Because I think if he had had any sort of expectation for her to actually be a decent person, you know, that he would have pushed more, or he would have, I don't know, employed some sort of guilt trip. You know what I mean? Like there's no rapport here that exists, and he doesn't like, you know, he says earlier in the episode that like, oh, I don't dislike her, I don't like her for you.
For you.
Yeah.
So he does not like this woman for his friend, doesn't like how she treats him, how she makes him act. So yeah, I don't think he went into this thinking that it was going to be successful, but he was like, I got to do it just because it's the right thing to do. You know?
Yeah, like you're so right. There is no rapport there. And I guess like the benefit from that is like they both don't have like, Bobby doesn't know anything to Tatiana. Tatiana doesn't owe anything to Bobby really. So they're just able to like level with each other, just like as people who are kind of thrust into this situation that is a really tough kind of between a rock and a hard place, at least the way Tatiana thinks.
And this is not to like discuss how this what if scenario would have gone. I'm just thinking about like how Bobby held himself in this conversation could have gone very differently if, say, it were Buck.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or someone of that kind of personality, because I feel like he would have had some words for her, and there would have been judging, and there would have been, you know, some harsh things said, but not who Bobby is.
Oh, I see. So Buck instead of Bobby, not Bobby.
Yeah.
Okay,
like if Buck had been the person to go there.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's saying this stuff, which, I'm sorry, objectively sounds horrible. And
it's not great.
it's not great. It's not a good look. And she keeps saying, I'm not a bad person. Don't judge me. And I'm just like, you're so lucky that this was Bobby.
Because he doesn't judge.
Because I think he does, but he keeps it to himself and because I think he was looking at this as a professional sort of interaction.
Courtesy. Yeah.
You know, even though it was for a personal reason. But yeah, I don't know. I just had that thought where I was like sitting there going, these are the things I would have said. And then I was like, oh man, if only Buck had been there.
No, that's a fantastic point.
Buck would have ripped her to shreds, honestly.
Yeah. He would have read her for filth. Like, it would have been great.
Like the
nastiest read.
Yeah, like the way Buck was to Athena, like with the baby in the pipe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was so much
the ambulance would have been that, but like he has so much more of a connection to Chimney. So like, ooh, that would have been wild to see. But yeah, I feel like Bobby really does do this as like a professional kind of like courtesy for Chimney.
Yeah.
Yes, for Chimney. He does not give a shit about this woman.
No, he doesn't.
But the line that I thought was the most telling, he's doing this to try to give his friend, and he uses friend. He doesn't say like employee, coworker, crew, team member, anything like that. He says friend, and I feel like that's a specific choice there, because that crosses the bounds of the professionalism. And yet again, it is a family, Bobby. There's no escaping that. Bobby says he's only over there to get Tatiana to go see Chimney because he thinks that having her there will give Chimney the best chance of fighting to recover. The only other thing that he can do, I think I switched the order here, but
it was pray.
The only other thing he can do is pray. He's doing the only thing that he feels like he has power or control to do. And I think her response is fascinating because she's not supposed to be like a likable character, right? I mean, there is like some empathy. I guess you can like empathize a little bit or like more sympathize, I suppose, of like why she feels or the fact that she feels awkward in that way. Maybe that's just me.
I think that's just you, man.
Okay, never mind. And this is where you see the differences between how we all like interpret these things.
I mean,
well, okay. Let me play the role that I usually do not play.
Are you going to be devil's advocate?
Role? Oh my god,
a little bit. So feel free to jump in. But I mean, she's. I'm just like reading her whole quote. She's it's kind of like she's explaining her point of view as to why she doesn't want to do this. She doesn't want to go to the hospital, hold his hand. She doesn't want to do that. I guess what she's trying to say, even though I do not agree with any of this, full disclosure, because I still think you could have been a decent human being and at least visit him at least once. Because you have
That's literally all Bobby was asking her to do.
I know. You could have been decent. The bare minimum. Actually, you don't even have to hold his hand. You could have just sat there and be like,
and talk.
Hey, I hope you feel better.
And he was unconscious.
On top of that, like, what is he gonna, like, is he really gonna, like, remember this? Probably not.
Like, do what you would do for a friend.
A friend. Exactly.
Someone that, she says that she doesn't love him, which I have things to say about that. But even if you don't love the person that you're dating, I would hope that you cared about them.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%. But, like, here's what I do kind of understand from what she says. And again, remember my full disclosure before what I'm saying. It's, she doesn't want to, honestly, no, Tatiana, it does make you look like a jerk if you don't do this. But, like, you also don't want to be a jerk in regards to, like, I guess living a lie, which actually, hold on, like, living a lie, kind of like what Chimney's doing. Hold on. Rachel.
I'm connecting the dots.
You're picking it up. You're picking up my thread.
Okay, yeah, well, what she's trying to say is, like, kind of, like, she doesn't want to, like, continue a facade that she's she cares for him in a deeper way. It actually makes her look, it makes her look bad now, but if she continues that thread and Chimney does wake up, actually sees her, like, and this is a what if situation, like, if she breaks up with him right after that, it's kind of messed up too. And now I'm thinking about another character.
But you could,
Anyway.
You could at least, I think I know who you're talking about, but you could at least, like, I feel like I would at least be like, that person actually cared about me, that I lived or died. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just like, wow, they really didn't care about me at all, even after I, like, proposed to them and showed them that I, like, wanted to spend the rest of my life with them. And I'm pretty sure that even if they're not actually living together, she's just chilling at his place while he's getting brain surgery.
Put all the food in the fridge.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't need to be there. if she doesn't want to be a part of the family, which is like Bobby shows up and he's like, yeah, we're like, you know, the firefighter department, we're a family, we take care of our own. And she goes, is that what I am, family? And it's like, I don't know, you're in his place. You're dating him, and you didn't say no to his proposal because you didn't want to break up with him and lose the benefits that you have by dating him, but you also don't want any of the responsibility in this situation. So in that case, you would still be horrible in my eyes, but less so if you just fucking left. Than if you like continue to stay in this, like in his residence while he but you don't care. I don't know. I can't stand this woman. I can't. I do not understand her point of view. I can understand, you know, I can put myself in the headspace of like, I'm in a relationship where I'm not in love with the person. And I don't want to be stuck out of guilt in a relationship because they got injured trying to help them get better. I can understand that. But the fact that she won't even visit him one time is just sucks. Like, I'm sorry, to me. Yeah. She's like, I'm not a bad person. I'm like, you kind of are.
Yeah. I think what Scylla was kind of picking up on, which, and I like to play devil's advocate a lot. I know. I feel like, I know. I feel like in an episode where, you know, people are having these like reality checks kind of thing, I think she didn't really understand the depth of what she was signing up for when she was on romancingtheuniform.com, whatever. She didn't understand fully the kind of brotherhood, the family dynamic of like the firefighting community or the first responder, paramedic, you know, stuff like that. Because Bobby says, you know, firefighters are a brotherhood, cops are the same way. It's like this familial unit sort of stuff that they always want to like look after the actual family. And I don't think she ever realized that was part of it, or maybe like she might have understood like as a concept, but again, not when faced with reality, which is kind of ironic, seeing as she seemingly loves those folks who do these like daredevil-y, death-defying stunt action hero stuff, which like is the other side of the coin essentially. Because like if you do all those things, there is a likelihood that they will get hurt and then you're left to kind of pick up the pieces essentially. And I don't think she really understood that. And I think in a sense, with her saying that she doesn't want to do the whole Florence Nightingale routine and stick by his side for this, and then she's kind of like in it for like in for a penny, in for a pound, because then afterwards, if she leaves him for that, people will think she's a jerk. People will think she's a jerk anyways. I have a feeling... It shouldn't be
about how she's being perceived.
Well, that's what she operates on. That seems to
be all she gives a shit about.
That's what she operates on. So for her, it's either look like a major jerk later after, you know, everything, or look like a jerk, kind of lesser of two evils, and dip now.
But she's not dipping.
Neither of which are right. I mean,
she's dipping now. I think it's okay. She's gonna dip now.
I think she uses this as the opportunity to kind of
but it's
exit quietly. I know it's infuriating. And I'm not saying any of it is right. I think that's kind of the option she was weighing is like lesser of two evils. You're going to look bad either way, which again, she shouldn't be operating on what other people will perceive her as. But this, it kind of shows that she doesn't have much of an internal conscience to begin with.
No, it seems like she doesn't care about anyone but herself and how people
and
view her.
That is not what that is not the right match for Chimney. So like,
Absolutely
no,
not.
it's not.
Which
I
is
know
one of
it
the
is.
reasons that I'm sure Bobby was like, I don't like this girl for you, because Chimney is a very giving person.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. The girlfriend should have dipped when he proposed. And she was like, oh yeah, I don't love this man. He obviously is in love with me and wants to marry me. She should have dipped.
Yeah.
And that's why I think she's not a good person. Because she was like,
No.
I know I'm not in love with him, but I'm just gonna stay and not like tell him no, but not tell him yes, because I don't want to lose the benefits I have of being in this relationship.
She wants to operate and live in this kind of like limbo area. She wants to have her cake and eat it too.
Mhm.
Essentially
Mhm.
is what she's trying to do, which is why she hasn't like left his apartment, because she wants to live in that in-between space, which is not beneficial to anyone. Any part of this, it's not beneficial to Chimney. It's not beneficial to her. It's just so not fair to Chimney. But it is kind of, it's kind of interesting though that like she doesn't want to live a lie,
Mhm.
essentially, which is kind of what she's already been doing, unbeknownst, maybe beknownst, deep
Beknownst.
down. But that's yeah, but that's essentially like what she's
Yeah.
doing anyway. She just like isn't willing to do it for Chimney, and it's just ugh. So like that whole conversation, that back and forth, that just like tell it like it is. I'm not gonna like pull any punches. This is who I am, essentially, as much as we get to know Tatiana. And it's just like, how can you like what you see? Like, what does Chimney, and then it brings it to like, what does Chimney see in her? And I think I think he just likes the idea that she's into him.
The idea
Because
of her. Yeah.
yeah, because she likes that he is action firefighter guy,
Yeah.
which again, just like it's all on the whole relationship is just on like shifting sand.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not foundational.
You know what I do like is that Bobby says to her, I'm just saying he loves you, misguided as he may be.
Yes.
Okay.
Like Bobby
That's
gets
that
it. He
underhand
sees.
burn.
Go
Yeah.
off.
Mhm. It
That's
really
the-
is. And like it's nice that Bobby kind of like sees the whole thing for what it is and
Yeah.
like says so, speaks on it. Because again, like you were saying with the what ifs, if it were anyone else having this conversation with her,
Yeah. It was very interesting.
it would go so differently. Like even if it were Hen, it would be
Ooh,
so
oh, yeah.
different,
Ooh.
which
Like,
would
forget-
Which
crazy.
Hen I feel like could deliver a Bobby sort of interaction if it wasn't Chimney.
she
Yeah.
would be that middle ground again,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
she the anger I think that she would
Mhm.
feel for
It
her
could pop
best
up.
friend would absolutely
Yeah.
show itself. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, you know, it's on a spectrum, and you just got the one that's gonna cut to the quick, essentially.
Buck would have eviscerated her, and it just would have brought me so much joy in my heart, you know?
Mm. Yeah, and it's just kind of sad also because like we don't get any closure or resolution for
No.
Chimney in that sense. I mean, essentially the episode is saying, or the story is saying, that he doesn't really need it because he didn't really need her, and all he needs truly are the 118 by his side, because that is his family. But it is something to just like keep in mind, because we may be revisiting it at some point. So just to kind of like keep in mind the growth that Chimney will go through, like from this kind of introductory, and how he is able to embrace his true self a little more. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Just a few things to kind of like point out here and there. Like I said at the beginning, this is the first time we see our own experienced emergencies. And I think like so many of us thought that they were going to kill one of the main characters off in the third episode, but it doesn't. So it kind of shows how the show as a whole will put the characters through the ringer, but won't really kill their darlings. And then we just get to see the fun of what tragedy and trauma they're going to experience next. There was another part I thought, so we covered a lot about Chimney and Athena and Abby. So there was like an A, a B, and a C plot. With Abby being the C plot, the one that we saw the least of, she didn't show up, and her whole like subplot didn't show up in the episode until about like 28 minutes in, which I thought was interesting, just like structurally how they broke up the episode between all of the arcs. And also on that sense, Athena's arc, like the plot B kind of was almost the entire middle.
Yeah.
Fairly unbroken, because we saw like all of that hospital scene. It was kind of like a bottle where they didn't really go anywhere else. They were just in the hospital. But Abby being the C plot and introduced so late into the episode, and it's like a 42-minute episode. So it was kind of interesting to see how they spread all of that out. I feel like that's not typically a usual episode structure. But it made sense, how they cut it together that way. I just thought that was interesting. And there were a couple like parallels or foreshadowing that I didn't really mention. Very early on in the bounce house, the dad at the beginning, he got a head injury, right? From being tossed out of the bounce house. So we're seeing a lot of like stuff with head or brain. So he got a head injury. Chimney got the rebar through the skull. Abby's mom has Alzheimer's, which is a brain disease. And then May is struggling with mental health. So it's a lot of stuff like going on up here in the noggin. And then I also thought it was interesting that the episode had in the beginning and the end birthday parties. We saw with the 10-year-old with the bounce house at the beginning, and Abby's mom, her birthday in close towards the end. So it's kind of like you see this circle of life essentially as like you see youth, you see older age, but also how, because Abby's mom has Alzheimer's, it's kind of like her reverting to childhood in a sense, because she is dependent on someone, much like a child would be dependent on the parent, except the roles are reversed because of this. So I thought that was interesting as well. And then just a little fun fact for everyone, as unbelievable as and like made for TV as it seems like Chimney's rebar injury is, there was it's a pretty famous case of, do you know what I'm about to say?
No, I don't. You're gonna tell me, is this real?
Not in the same way, but kind of.
What happened?
So there was a guy in the mid 1800s. His name is Phineas Gage, and he was a railroad construction foreman. And he is this really famous case where where a large iron rod was driven completely through his head. So not in the same like direction or way that Chimney's was. I think it went like up this way, like diagonally, like from like the jaw or the cheek to like up. And he survived it. And this was in like the mid 1800s. He only lived to be like 36. So I think this happened when he was 24, I believe. So he's like this really famous case because it showed a lot about how the brain works in the 1800s, which was like a time where they were getting, I think it was like the Enlightenment, right? Forgive me if that's incorrect. So there was a lot of interest in medical, scientific stuff like that, and the brain was very much a mystery. So this
still a mystery.
It honestly still is, but this gave people a lot of information because of the way that like it went through. I think it was his frontal lobe of his brain, like how resilient the brain is, how elastic it is, because he lived for 12 more years after this. However, there have been a lot of reports about how his personality kind of changed, and that may or may not be true. It may have been exaggerated, but it kind of gave...
Well, it depends what, part of his brain it touched.
Yeah.
Could be true.
Exactly. So because it was that frontal lobe, I think that has to do with a lot of personality stuff.
Yeah.
So there were reports that he seemed like a different person, but then there were also, I think, some reports that it kind of went back to normal. It's all a little like hearsay, but I just thought that was interesting because that is kind of pulled from a very famous,
that is cool,
similar case. So that was
so
Red String Corner. All right, now we can discuss themes. I can go over these kind of quickly. I have a lot for it, but I feel like we've touched on a bunch of it.
I just have family.
I got family.
Yeah, I have family and different family dynamics and showing
Yes.
like I mentioned earlier, the difference between, being related, choosing to bring someone into your family by, I don't know, dating them, proposing to them, marrying them. And
Ooh, that's a good point too.
Because like we see like the first call at the beginning, that husband is just a piece of fucking work. Like he has this new wife and this kid who he has no interest in, and the kid was like beside his older kid whose birthday it is was like beside himself, that his dad was hurt. And the new wife is upset. And like even as he's getting like carted off, she's like, we're all gonna be okay. And he's still like not, giving her or his new kid any attention. So really great setting the stage for
The rest of
how
the
you can
episode
be a
that way.
family but not a family. You know what I mean? Like you can look at a piece of paper and be like, this is a dad and a stepmom and or a dad and a mom, their kid, and then stepmom to his first kid. But like, are they a family?
Remains to be seen.
And and I feel like that was mirrored a little bit in in Chim's relationship with Tatiana and how he wanted to like the whole goal of like being in a serious relationship with someone is to make them your family.
Yes.
And he is actively trying to do that in this episode by proposing to her, and she is not interested. And then that's reinforced, later in the episode when she's just like, I have no interest in being family and being supportive. And then we get to see all the different, dynamics and different forms that families can take because the 118 is chosen family. And we see different ways that family can support or not support each other. And like Abby and some of the other calls too.
Yeah, like how people show up for their family and how a family deals with like an emergency or when a family member is in distress. That's what I picked up on too, especially
which is like the whole like name of the episode is Next of Kin, which is just like that's kind of like the word for, I think, referring to the people who are left behind when you die. I think, is that correct?
Essentially, I think that's where you hear it most, but I think that's also kind of like if someone is in like grave harm or has experienced something.
Yeah, a person, their closest living blood relative.
Yeah.
Including spouses and adopted family members. It's important in the context of as a descendants, next of kin, and inheritance and estates.
Which is nice because we don't see any of our people have to experience that. Like the full loss. I think that's absolutely like the main thesis of the episode, like how people show up or who chooses to even show up in general. And also kind of related to family dynamics is kind of like, I thought, taking on different roles than what may be expected in a family. So like with the bounce house, the dad is acting very childish because he goes into the bounce house and he's trying to, like, be one of the boys or be one of the kids, and he's kind of reverting in this desperate attempt to bribe his child to like him more. And the stepmom,
and avoid his new wife and child.
Exactly. And the stepmom you see is kind of like almost more concerned and caring about the kid than you would think. But I think also that comes from a lot of fairy tale stories about the evil stepmother, and it kind of like subverts that expectation, essentially. And then there's also Abby, who has to parent her mom, and that role reversal there. And kind of May being the teenager, thinking she could act like an adult and handle things on her own when she can't, or doesn't need to be independent so soon. And then so we all see Bobby as the 118's kind of father figure, and Hen and Buck were very much acting like siblings. In this episode, it's like Chimney is the rebellious teenager, kind of, or the teen that's having beef with the parent, even though they're all adults. So it's kind of like either we're seeing role reversal or kind of like age reversion in a way, which is kind of interesting to look at from a like macro point of view. I have a couple others. I think another main one is overcompensation. We see as a big theme in this episode, like literally everybody is overcompensating for something. The dad is overcompensating from with the bounce house and this fancy sushi birthday party, and Athena and Michael are kind of overcompensating because they think they're at fault. Meanwhile, May says like they're not the reason why she did what she did. But in essence, they're not like hovering exactly, but they're kind of like compensating for the fact that they didn't know what was wrong, by like being so close when she wakes up and like not wanting to leave her side. That's a very like instinctual parental reaction, but it's also it can be like to help compensate in their mind. And then we also have, of course, Chimney living his double life, kind of connected to the concept of overcompensation. I also kind of saw there was like a why and a how. So the why tended to be like keeping up appearances, like societal pressures, which we talked about with Tatiana as well, about she was so concerned with how other people saw her. And then Chimney again feeling like he needed to fill this action firefighter role so he would have value, essentially. And then Abby putting up a front, saying she's fine, taking care of her mom, but like recognizing that like once her brother leaves, that, she doesn't necessarily have it all together, but she's doing what society thinks that she should do because she's taking care of her mom and that's what she wants to do anyway. But then also like May succumbing to peer pressures and bullying. So that's very much like a societal pressure situation. And then I saw there were also like some extreme reactions, which can, I guess, in a way be viewed as overcompensating, but not quite in the same way, like acting in ways that may not be typical of their character. Like, I know it's only the third episode, but the whole hen tackling the driver and like blowing off steam, even though she said like that's not what they're there to do. It seems like that's not as typical of a behavior that she would normally have. So is like May didn't want to die, but she self-harmed by with overdosing anyways. Like just like these extreme kind of reactions, especially when we see Chimney yelling at Bobby. He shows up as this like carefree, happy-go-lucky, kind of like chill guy. So to see him react in such an extreme way, especially at Bobby, is interesting to see like all of those different aspects of their characters that wouldn't necessarily be thought of like, not that it's out of character, just like not a normal reaction for them too.
Not
and a lot
ordinary.
of that. And then I just have one more, and it was helplessness. So not having power over a situation, like wanting to be able to help when you have a family member who's in distress. Like when Bobby said the only things he could do were talk to Tatiana and pray. Athena and Michael are literally powerless when CPS like essentially carts them away. I think this is shown most clearly like when the scene cuts from Chimney's brain surgery and that hemorrhaging, where the 118 can't do anything about it. They don't even know that that's quite happening because it's like in surgery, they're not there. And that scene cuts directly to Abby and her mom. And Abby also feels like a sense of helplessness because she knows there is nothing that she can do to make her mom better. But she wants to be doing more. So kind of like that, essentially like how you're able to cope with that feeling of helplessness and how you show up for family.
Just a couple gay things. It is only episode 3.
We've got a long road.
We have 2 crumbs. Brought to you by Hen. Thank you, Mother Hen, for serving us.
Thanks, Mama Hen.
The first is a Hen and Buck playing video games. That is the most by a baby with a lesbian aunt I've ever seen in my life. I don't have any further elaboration there. It just is. If that is not your gay aunt with their like nibbling, who they're like they've always kind of known, but like they haven't come out to you yet. But they're your favorite. Given that they're kind of a fuck up.
There's like an extra sense of camaraderie. Like,
yes. Yeah. And we're getting, I think we're starting to see like their relationship evolve and her be able to like more openly care about him because she's getting to know the real him more. So I just love this little snip of them. It's like one of my favorite moments of them in the entire show. I love it. And then we see later on the call with the families that were stuck in the shipping container. Yeah, the shipping container. After Hen is specifically to Buck like, yes, it is bad that you want to blow off some steam. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to help people. And then she tackles the guy to the ground. And Buck comes over and he was like, that was so badass, but I thought we weren't here to blow off steam. And she goes, you know what you can blow.
That was just like a great line.
It was just so great. But you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think, and I'm getting into very much assumptions and, getting into what I think a character would or would not say. But I do not think that that Hen is the kind of person who would throw around that kind of like insinuating language to people that she doesn't think are of that persuasion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was very much like a kind of out of frustration and anger.
Yes.
Which goes to like that kind of overreaction sort of thing again. Like,
I can't see her ever saying that to like to Poppy or Jim. Like, I could never see her saying that specific line. And like, it was so funny because
so snarky.
Yeah, and it was so funny because I was like, I know it's like a throwaway line, but like it really is. I don't know.
It's part of it's part of the crumbs.
It is part of the crumbs, but it's so funny because I was watching this episode, for listeners who do not know, I am a bisexual person in a relationship with a cis hetero man. And he doesn't really watch the show, but he was with me for one of my rewatches of this episode this evening. And when that line was said, he was like, foreshadowing. So I felt very validated in thinking that was like intentional and not just like I don't know, because it just seems like, I know this is only the 3rd episode and we don't have a lot of Hen yet, but you know, not to really be a spoiler, that's not really the kind of language she throws around.
No, but like if we learn kind of one thing from watching the show, it's that there are no throwaway lines in 911.
Everything's intentional.
Like, everything is intentional. And
it is.
Even if it's maybe kind of by accident, most of the time I think it's not. But in this case, it probably was just like happy coincidence.
I don't know.
Perhaps not. That is up to interpretation.
Exactly. I'm not here to assess intent, you know, 100% intention. I'm just here to assess as if these characters are real people.
Yeah. Like, that is given to us, so we have to like
exactly
examine it as such. You know, because it is in the canon, like that this was said, but there are no throwaway lines.
But I'm just saying, like, looking back at this as someone who has watched season 7, episode 6,
3, 4,
7,
4.
What? 4. Oh, 4. Of season 7.
I'm talking about the scene in the hospital.
5. No,
that's
6.
6?
Oh my gosh.
It's 6.
The wedding episode?
The matinee? Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm talking about specifically her reaction in that episode.
That's
is exactly what I thought of.
No, I see the strings. I see the invisible string.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought of when she said this line. I was like, she's always known.
Yes.
No, I mean that.
She sniffed that out.
We should have done a segment. We should have done a segment on her. Hen knows.
She knows. She'll probably be a regular part of this segment, especially starting in season 2.
Oh yeah.
Let's be real.
She knows of what she speaks.
Mother Hen sees things and knows things.
And she's real about them too.
Yep.
So for real.
Beautiful man.
Anyway, thank you for these 2 lovely crumbs. Because I was like, I really don't want to have to say the same exact thing that it's 2 episodes.
We'll build on this. Like it's getting there.
We're getting coming. We're going places. Oh, the places you'll see.
Oh, the places will go, indeed. Does anyone have any last minute thoughts? Otherwise, I think we can wrap up this episode of Next of Kin.
This was a good episode. It sets up I believe the next one. But it gives us a lot of ground information. That becomes very important.
Yeah, we're really learning about these characters and kind of like how they're growing individually, but also together as a team. So
as a family,
exactly. And remember, don't jump in a bouncy house anywhere near a cliff.
But if you do,
take a buddy with you. Thank you for listening to the Buddie System podcast from start to finish.
We literally cannot shut up about 911, so please come talk to us on your favorite social media platform.
We're at Buddie System Pod everywhere. That's BUDDIE System Pod.
Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to get a personal shout out in the next episode. The Buddie System is a Nerdvergent media production featuring music from Divinity.
Can't get enough of the buddies? Subscribe to our Patreon for access to exclusive content in our Discord community.
Catch you next time, and don't forget,
Bring a buddy with you.